Apparently it's movie night. We're gonna watch a movie.
Did you not?
We guys wanna watch?
Nothing good's on.
Flag in their front yard.
Okay, we're strangers.
Yeah.
There's nothing good on.
It needs to be like.
COVID killed
Yes.
Thank you.
It
Appreciate
did.
it. Nice meeting you.
Of course.
Streaming started it and COVID killed it. I like anything that could be on Masterpiece Theater. All right, should we get started? Oh, hi, Nina. Hi. We're just in time for roll call. Who's doing roll call?
I think that would be me.
All right.
I think it would be very good.
Okay. Call to order. Okay. Nina Beasley. Here. Nick Burns.
Here.
Lacey Schwab.
Here.
John Lamb.
Here.
And for the record, Larry Vandenberg is absent.
All right, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have an action item, the approval of the August 17th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We don't have any old business. We get to move on to the public hearing.
All right, the action before you today is the consideration of the preliminary plat of the Thayer Farms West Long subdivision. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, will be presenting for the applicant.
Sweet. Do I need to do this quasi-judicial process?
If you want, or you can summarize it.
Everybody be nice, and you have time limits when we get there. Are there any,
If you wanted to do the legal standard that I gave you on a second piece of paper, just so everyone's aware, the standards that you guys have to impose.
standards? Oh.
It's just the
Just
first
the
one.
little guy.
Yeah, just the little one. You don't have to do the next one.
All right, legal standards, RCC 12-3-1-7. In its review, the commission shall determine if the proposed subdivision conforms to the general purposes of the comprehensive land use map. Whoa, let's try this again. The comprehensive land use plan, and whether the proposal includes appropriate provisions for streets, drainage, alleys, and other public ways, open space, water supply, sewage disposal, fire protection, and other appropriate public and private improvements. Are there any conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or bias that need to be put on the record from anyone in the commission?
No.
Anyone want to contest that from the audience? Awesome. All right.
Good evening. Good evening, Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, representing Big Creek Land Company tonight. Tom Mort, Cliff Mort, the Mort brothers, they are Big Creek Land Company. You've heard of them, seen them. They've been around in Rathdrum a long, long time, and they can tell you all about that. But they're local guys. We are here to talk about the Thayer Farms West project. So we had the original Thayer Farms project, which I don't have, you can't really see it. So yeah, you can't. So the lower right was the original Thayer Farms project, which we started 5 years ago. And then we moved into Thayer Farms North, which is the project that we just got paved, that's out there under construction. And now we're here tonight to talk about the third addition, if you will, to that project at Thayer Farms, which we're calling Thayer Farms West, which is the rest of that property, which takes us all the way over to Greens Ferry Road. So it's about 57 acres of that property that remains, which you can see on the map up there. So it is currently zoned R2 residential. It was annexed into the city in 1993, so it's been in the city quite a long time. I first started working on this property probably in 1999 with George Thayer many, many years ago. So I'm intimately familiar with it, and it's been a long time coming. So it's currently annexed, it's zoned R2. The comprehensive plan identifies it as low-density residential, which goes with the R2 zoning. So here is your zoning map. I've outlined the property there in red, which you can see in the R2. And this is actually, James, an older map because it doesn't show the Kootenai Electric stuff to the south.
Right.
You need to update your website.
Yeah, I think the map on the website was updated in December.
Yeah, I pulled it off the website about 2 hours ago.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Drew, calm down now.
In my presentation, the proper
Oh,
maps
okay.
are up.
But it does show the Kootenai Electric stuff to the south. But this is R2. The original Thayer Farms plat was R1. Again, this property is zoned all R2. So here is the preliminary plat. You can see that we have 6 phases that we're showing. You can see the large strip in the lower right-hand side. That's the Bonneville Power, the Vista gas easements that run through there. And you can see the cul-de-sac in the far lower right. That's the end of the original Thayer Farms subdivision, just to kind of show you how it all ties in. So on the south side, you have Lancaster Road, and to the west, you have Greens Ferry Road. So we're proposing 154 residential lots on 57 acres. That worked out to about 2.7 dwelling units per acre, so that is in the low density range. Along with this project, well, let me talk about sewer and water real quick, and it's kind of hard to see the difference. There's two, one's green and one's supposed to be blue, but there's 2 lines that go through the middle of that property. Those are the existing city sewer and water large transmission lines. So there's a 24-inch water main and a 24-inch gravity sewer line that go through the middle of this property to the lift station. So the city's lift station sits in the upper left-hand corner there along Greens Ferry. That's all existing infrastructure, so we had to kind of work around that when we were developing and designing this project. But along with this project, everything you see that's highlighted in green that abuts that BPA easement, about 3.6 acres of open space that we're going to dedicate to the city as open space. We're also going to build, and you can kind of see there's a meandering trail that goes through there. So we've constructed on the original Thayer Farms to the south. We've got a meandering trail along that Bonneville power line, and Rio Grande as it comes up on the right-hand side, we've got a meandering trail there. So there'll be a loop of 10-foot wide meandering walking path around that BPA Vista easement that's almost a mile long. We're also proposing that we'll continue that asphalt trail along Lancaster all the way over to Greens Ferry and up Greens Ferry. So between Thayer Farms' original plat and this plat, there's about 3.5 miles of trail that's right there that's accessible to the open space. You can actually see at the end of the cul-de-sac, I know you can't read it, but that's where the dog park is that we constructed with the original Thayer Farms. There's also the pickleball courts that are right there, so those trails will...
Right where?
I'm gonna point over here if I can. I'll talk really loud. So this is part of the original Thayer Farms. This is the dog park that was constructed, and this is the pickleball court that was constructed here. So you can see that there's the asphalt trail comes up, it connects to the asphalt trail that's already constructed along the Bonneville power lines. This is the new phase that has trail coming up here, and with the new project, we plan on bringing that meandering trail all the way back down to Lancaster so that it provides a loop. This loop right here is about 1.1 miles long. And again, we're going to bring that trail all the way over to here and all the way up Greens Ferry. So a bunch of open space, a bunch of walking trails, pedestrian trails, continuing what we did with, again, with the original Thayer Farms project. A fairly straightforward subdivision, as you read earlier, the rules that were, Rathdrum code rules that we're bound by for a subdivision. We've checked those boxes, or we feel like we've checked all of those boxes. Staff has reviewed it, and I know James is going to give you his presentation here momentarily, but we've reviewed all of those, we've checked those boxes. So we're here tonight to ask for your approval of Thayer Farms West. Any questions?
What's above phase A?
That's Thayer Farms North, that's currently under construction right now. That one was approved about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. We started that first phase. That's the stuff we just paved out. Rio Grande now goes all the way up to Nagel on the north side of the spiker, golden spike stuff there. So that's the stuff that's under construction.
Looks similar lot size
So it's very similar lots size. Actually, these lots are probably a little bit bigger than what we just did with that Thayer Farms North project. So, I want to say the average lot size in here is like 10,000 square feet, 11,000 square feet, so they're a bit bigger lots, yeah.
And they're not, so I know that one of the phases of Thayer Farms has a PUD, and this is, we're not doing anything with that in the future.
No, so the original Thayer Farms was zoned R1, but we did the PUD overlay on it because if you remember, the original Thayer Farms had some mixed sizes in it. It had some smaller stuff, it had some medium stuff, it had some bigger estate lots that we call them, and that's why we did the PUD with the original project. We're not doing that here. This is straight R2 zoning, so we're bound by that R2 zone and the requirements that are there. So, and again, already annexed, already zoned R2, so.
Phase E, where's that road, what's that road gonna tie into heading north?
Nothing at the moment, but your code actually requires that we provide connectivity to adjoining lands. It's the same reason that you can see in the Thayer Farms North, we've got that street that goes east-west that dead ends in that same property. That's actually a requirement in your code that we have to provide connectivity to adjacent property, even if that property is currently not in the city and not developed. We have to, for future needs, provide that connectivity.
Who's required to develop those roads?
Kind of like Golden Spike did, they developed them up to the internal. When the new developer comes in, they connect to the existing one that they are providing there at the
Okay.
property boundary.
And it's a requirement.
Yeah, it's
that they
everywhere.
tie
We saw it in Lakeland Landings, Timberglade.
Okay.
Leanne Lane used to just dead end into nowhere. Now
We
it's
saw it in
continuous.
Brookshire when we had to extend stuff to the south on Brookshire, and then we did the Brookshire South project, which continues on. But you see that in every project. That's actually a requirement in most cities we deal in, is you have to provide that connectivity. Otherwise, you'd end up landlocking properties that couldn't be, that are in the city limits or in the city area of the city impact that couldn't be developed in the future because there's no connectivity.
Was the 3.5 acres of green space, was that, proposed to the city or through like Parks and Rec, the green space of 3.5
It's
acres?
dedicated to the city. It goes to parks.
It goes to Parks, but how, do they approach you and kind of discuss that, or is that where, I'm jumbled because we made some of these changes, so now I'm wondering which one is under.
The change that we made to subdivisions was to require a 10-foot buffer on, in between the right-of-way and property boundaries. This application was received before that was passed, so they are not subject to it. So that isn't included.
So are you, okay, so this is a donation, but then there are also impact fees?
So if the city has agreed to accept this donation, we will enter into some sort of voluntary agreement where an amount, an appraisal amount will be assigned, and it would be, it would go along with part of their impact fee.
And who
That would
accepts that and when's that? Has that already happened with this?
No, 'cause-
No, this project is brand new. It is not
Probably wouldn't
on the
be
front.
done until final.
It usually wouldn't be done until final plat. So for example, when I was talking about the dog park and the pickleball court, we constructed those. So after construction, we came back with the final plat, and it was at that time that those were dedicated.
It's kind of like when infrastructure gets done and accepted at final plat, that's when we take it. It'd be the same with.
So the
green
city really
space.
doesn't want it until we agree to build what we said we would build. So for example, we will have to build the trails that go through there before we can actually dedicate that property to the city.
Irrigation or, anything else that would need to be in there needs to be built before we'll accept it.
Okay, and Parks and Rec takes a look at that before that's accepted? My concern is that it's sort of a long strip, so not a whole lot can be done with it.
Is that under the BPA?
So that trail kind of meanders in and out of the BPA easement, but again, the BPA easement is very restrictive on what you can and can't do under there. And so just as we did in, and I'll come over here again. So this trail here that we built with the original Thayer Farms is actually inside the Avista easement, inside that 625-foot wide. This trail will come in and out of that top portion of the TC Energy easement. But again, you're very limited on what you can and cannot do inside those. There's 3 easements there.
Well, I understand that. I guess I'll try to be clear. I guess I was so excited when I was reading this. I'm like, 3.5 acres, that's so generous, that's awesome. But these are kind of like portions you can't really do a whole lot with anyway, as opposed to like something that could be a dedicated park. So my concern why I'm asking is, are we just gonna be paying taxes to mow a strip that?
So, something that is kind of outside of this hearing, but you might wanna be aware of, is that we're working on kind of accumulating some of the BPA easement area, so that we can use it as part of our, land application. I don't know if you know what that means, so we have to have, with our agreement with Post Falls, do you wanna explain it?
No,
Jim?
go ahead, you can
we
probably
have
do
to
it better than I
have-
can, I'll use engineering technical
We have
stuff.
to have so much land set aside in case Post Falls ever uses their whole,
Sewer.
allotment for their sewer into the river. They only are allowed to put so much of the sewage after it's been treated into the river. If they ever fulfilled that, which they're not even close yet, we have to have land set aside that we can sprinkle this treated sewage on, which right now is just a big plot of agricultural land that could be developed. So what we would prefer to do is be able to take it off of that and put it somewhere such as the BPA easement area where we can have paths and we can water that, and that can be our land application area,
And create
like
green
these
space
paths,
and open
and create
space,
green
yeah.
space right there so that we can use our current land application, big piece of square agricultural land, prime for development.
It sounds.
It sounds,
What are you gonna put on there?
You shouldn't have, because I guarantee.
Like the University of Idaho,
do
all of
that
the green
stuff.
spaces, all of the lawns, all of the golf course is watered with treated wastewater.
recycled, treated.
It's not raw sewage.
It's not sewage.
No, it's after it comes out of the backside of the
Recycled,
treatment
treated
plant.
effluent.
It's
And that's why I
recycled
said I hope
water.
you can, I'll use technical terms
Yeah,
that
it's
would
recycled
probably
water,
scare you.
and it needs to go onto a green space so that it can go trickle through the thatch of the grass and be filtered and
And
go down to
obviously
the
it's
aquifer.
all regulated and controlled by DEQ and
Yes.
how much you
Right.
can
It's
do,
not
where you
raw
can do it.
sewage.
So let me repeat it back.
So, I think I can answer your question though.
We want, so the city would love to acquire that happily because it kind of does
So
two
we
things.
agreed with the original Thayer Farms to dedicate that portion of the DPA easement to the city. We've already agreed to do that. So that strip that you see right there is in the process of being dedicated to the city
And this
already.
path is right next to it.
We knew that, we knew where the city was going with this land application of treated effluent.
There we go.
So, knowing that, we said, well, let's put the path up against it, let's create more open space up against open space that we already have and make it bigger versus trying to create a pocket open space, if you will, that won't have access to the larger open space. So again, like I said, we created that long, mile-long loop of walking trail around it, knowing that that is going to be dedicated to the city in the near future.
I think that's great.
Is that-
It's just different than reading green space and thinking, oh sweet, this neighborhood's gonna have like a little park, which it doesn't. So we just wanted to be super clear.
It will
That
have walking
seems-
paths.
And that's great,
Yeah.
but that's ever so slightly kind of hiding behind language to go, we just want that totally out there in a hearing. This is not like a park, this is a space to, that
open
kind of
space.
It's open
kills
space.
two birds
It's
with
open.
one
It's not a park.
stone.
It's just open space that we're, can use for other purposes besides just a park.
No,
But it's open
and
space.
just to be clear too, your subdivision ordinance does not require that we dedicate any open space at all
Right.
to a straightforward subdivision. So, we are dedicating over 3.5 acres, which is
But
over 6%.
wouldn't it be nice to
It
have
would be
a park?
fantastic.
That's
But
all. I'm
you got a pickleball court, you got a dog park, and you've got, with the BPA easement, you've probably got 30-something acres of open space right there that your Parks Department could do a lot with.
But not under the easement.
You can, just you're restricted to certain things. You can't build structures, you can't build stuff like that. But there's a lot you can do under there.
What's considered permanent structure can be placed on
Well, yeah. And that's beyond, I can't control that. That's easement agreements that have been in place for 50, 60 years with you, Emily's familiar with them, with Bonneville and Vista and whatnot.
I think we understand that portion. Just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
I'm done. Does anybody else have any questions?
Right, can I interject there?
It's your turn anyways.
Oh, it is my turn.
Yeah,
it's your
Before I begin my presentation, the parks plan designates, neighborhood parks that cover this, the city park that has a larger radius, and this, I believe, falls into the existing parks that have been established in Thayer Farms. So, I mean, if the Parks Department and their parks plan said we needed a park here, then that would have happened, that conversation would have happened.
But there's a park in that corner.
But those facilities are available in the radius required according to the parks plan. So there was no call for or need for additional park space, like a pocket or neighborhood park in this subdivision.
And if I could just add on to that real quick too, we are still also paying, as I had alluded to, impact fee, park impact fees. You know, as we pull a building permit, I don't know what your parking, it's $1,349
tell
or
ya.
something like that per building permit that we pay that goes directly to the parks and rec for future park needs as determined, as James was saying, by your parks master plan.
Yep.
So we're dedicating the 3.5 acres, but we're also paying the park impact fee as well.
That's all you.
Right, let's see. This one's okay. We're talking about Thayer Farms West. It's a long plat. Today is today. The hearing is September 21st, 2022. Big Creek Land Company, Tom and Cliff here are the property owners. Drew is the representative representing them. There is no address, no structures on these parcels at this time. A brief property history. Drew was a tiny bit off. It was annexed, this entire area as part of the BTU Thayer annexation, 6/28 of 94.
I said 93.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That took quite a bit of research.
Get out right now.
Yes.
I was still in high school, James, sorry.
We researched the heck out of that, so that
Right,
is.
because when it was annexed as R1 and it was rezoned in 96 to R2. So it is R2, it's been that way for forever. Here's our zoning and future land use designations. It is zoned R2 and it is low density residential. It's a tiny little thing on there. Evidently my labels weren't set to the same setting when I was producing maps for this. Let's see, there's the prelim plat, 154 lot major subdivision, 154 residential lots, 3 tracts, 57 acres of land as Drew said. Right-of-way dedication and improvements for streets and sidewalks in accordance with city standard, including, I love the names here, by the way, Tractor Avenue, Bale Street, Crop Avenue, Irrigation Avenue, Plow Court, Barbed Wire Lane, Massey
I
Street,
tell you what, I'm
Tilly Court.
accepting applications for street. It is the.
Do you run out of them?
It is, sorry, to interrupt. It is the hardest thing in my profession to do is to come up with street names on projects. I'm serious, it is incredibly hard.
Pretty hard.
Cause they gotta get approved by the city, then they gotta get approved by the county, then they gotta get approved by emergency
Beasley
services.
Street,
And then,
Burns Street.
Right, so
I'm writing them down.
we've got 154 lots proposed in the R2 district. These lots range in size from 8,280 square feet to 15,214 square feet. The minimum lot size required in the R2 zone is 7,500. So their lot size average is much higher than required by the zoning district. Project review. Staff has reviewed the proposal and determined that it's supported by the comprehensive plan and consistent with code. The applicant will be required to construct public infrastructure before the development or sale of individual lots within the subdivision. They will be required to sign a development agreement addressing utility streets, street trees, stormwater, etc., as is required for every subdivision. Individual lots will be subject to building permits and zoning standards within the city, and all of this information is included in the packet that you have. And that is all I have for that.
Alright.
Do you have any questions for James before?
I don't.
I don't.
Who owns the lot above it to the north? My fear is what just happened, and if a road goes through there, because it's not connecting to development and it's an actual road, an arterial, that those other roads don't get completed and they just dead end.
Well, they will dead end until that property is annexed and developed.
Right.
right? But if they ever choose to annex, they want to develop, they will be required to connect to those roads. That's what those roads are put there, for future connectivity.
Well, we just had, what was it, the development that didn't have to do that.
That was a PUD, which created a separate situation. That connectivity was tied to their PUD. They wanted to modify the PUD, which was approved. They don't have the option to come back later and say, we don't want that road to go through. It's not subject to a second guessing, such as that.
Any other questions? All right.
Actually,
Or
so
not.
I didn't, so there hasn't been any complaints for anyone around. I know that there was in a different one on the Thayer Farms North, I know that, but I didn't see any for this one.
We just received one comment right before this meeting by Jackie, who's here, and James did print them out for you guys to read, but maybe she would be kind enough to know she was okay. So she did submit a comment, but this, I believe, is the only written comment that we've received.
Only written
This is the only
comment
one.
received.
And then we do have one person here who would like to speak during the public input portion.
All right, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to that section. All right, we're gonna move on to the public comment section of our hearing. If you would like to speak, you must sign in, including your address, on one of our public hearing comment forms that are found in the back. I'll time you for 3 minutes. Please keep comments addressed to the commission and relevant. It's not an appropriate place for being personally derogatory. If the comment is a question, the commission can answer it, or they can take your question. Or the applicant can answer it in his rebuttal. Let's see, 3 minutes. Please avoid the repetitive comments. Comments will not be accepted out of order from seated members of the public or after the hearing is closed. Does everybody understand the rules? Excellent. Okay, let's start with those in favor. Do we have anyone present in favor that would like to speak? All right, any neutral?
I was kind of neutral and against.
Would you like to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
Anita Duksick, 8698 West Hood Street, Rathdrum. I don't think I'm out of turn to do this. This is all brand new to me, so everything you're doing, and I noticed that there were 298 pages of attachments, so I tried to kind of go through one of them. I think my biggest concern at this point is how the kids that are going to be in this development are going to be housed. We know that our schools are already overcrowded, and I go to the board meetings and there's so much work that needs to be done on them. And I tried to look through the developers portion, and I don't see what is the developers' part in helping to fund new schools, because we do need new schools. As much as we don't want to see this area grow the way it is, it's going to happen. And I think it needs to be smart. But it's not just schools, it's all the infrastructure, part of which we're doing now, but I just don't understand. And bonds and levies, I'm sorry, as a homeowner now, that is not going to cut it as much as we're growing. I mean, property taxes are already they're already out of control. And I went to a school board meeting and they were presented, and I believe I think it was a developer, I'm sorry, it was earlier this year. And they were given a check for $500 per student, so a big cardboard check, to go toward the school for, if I remember correctly, probably towards some kind of building or something. That's nothing. $500 from a developer per anticipated student is nothing. So just kind of want to know what the builder, what the developers, and then the new people that are moving in there, what their responsibility is for the infrastructure, for the schools that need to be built for this. It's a big deal to me. And I think this might be the right place to address it, and I will be talking to the school board also. I mean, the school planning. Like I said, this is all new to me, but those are just some of the questions I have. And 298 pages is a lot for me to dig through, because I don't understand all your abbreviations and stuff. I will learn, But, anyway, that's my concern, and I'm gonna imagine if it's my concern, it's gonna be the concern of some other people out in the community. So, that was, I think.
Oh, look, you have 33 seconds left.
Oh, darn.
So, can you answer a question about the schooling and the
Let's do a rebuttal first,
What do we
so
do?
that they can respond.
Can I have a minute to read this other one in opposition? Can I
If
do
you would
that
like
now?
to read it, yeah.
Since we were just given it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do we have any others in opposition? Do you want your?
I mean, I can
time
add to
comment?
what I wrote.
It's
It's
up
something
to
they
you.
haven't heard before from me.
It's up to you, you've got
Yeah,
3
that's
minutes if
fine.
you want it.
Hey,
Hi.
I'm Jackie. I live at 12856 Rio Grande, so I live in Thayer Farms. So, of course, the concerns that she brought up are very valid, and that's something that I've talked about up here many times. What are we doing about the police, the firemen? We just keep building and building and building and building. And this isn't just with them. This is Brookshire and the apartments and Majestic Park and the other apartments, and it just keeps going. So we can keep talking about that, and we can keep saying, yeah, let's just keep building, and maybe someone will want to be a police officer here, but we're not really hiring any. Maybe someone will want to be a fireman, but we're really not hiring any. Maybe someone will want to be a teacher, but who's coming? So where are these kids going to get taught at? What is the repercussions to the short term and long term? Also, I'm sure you all saw that article that came out that our aquifer is not really doing so hot because of all the building in this strip, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, everything. Are we just going to keep saying yes because we're just going to go along with it? Like, let's just build another 150 floors, it's no big deal. But there's the other thing that I've also talked about in this, which is their building quality. They're still building homes not to international building code. Still, they know it. We all know it. The city said they investigated it, and it's fixed. It's not fixed. Take a level. Is your concrete level? Is there 2 inches below your door from your finished concrete, which is required by international building code? No. My front door cracked in half 2 weeks ago. You know what they said to me? It's outside of our warranty, sorry. Cracked in half. They don't stand behind their work, and they just don't care as much as they might say they do, and they've been in this area for a long time. That's great. I'm sure they have been in this area a long time, they know everybody, but you have a bunch of people that don't know them. And they're seeing this going, wait, this isn't right. My front door cracked in half, and you don't care because it's 1 month outside of my warranty. That's not right. I got my house fixed. The city said they investigated everyone else's houses, but they won't fix anybody else's houses. They are still not to international building code. And if the city's involved in something like that, and they're still not fixing it, isn't that a class action? just saying. The city denied that anything was going on, they won't fix it. You can't deny taking a level to your concrete and saying it's not 1/4 inch per foot away from your house to make sure water doesn't go into your house. It's very easy to see those things, and for some reason won't fix it. And so do we keep moving people into this area, charging $3,100 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath? $2,800 a month for rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, because now they're not even selling these homes. They're renting them. Who's moving here paying $3,100 a month for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and we think that person's gonna be a police officer? They're gonna work at Super One, which is short-staffed? The Zips just closed their lobby because they can't find people. The people that we're bringing in to pay for what they're building, they're not working in Rathdrum. So we're just bringing people in, putting more strain on all of our resources, and we're not doing anything about it.
That's
Why?
your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much. All right, are there any other comments? Are there any online? Do we have anyone online? All righty. It's in the paper. There, it's on this side, there we go. Okay. All right, applicant rebuttal.
Thank you again for the record, Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering. I'll address the schools, I think, with the help of Emily a little bit. And, in Idaho, we're not allowed, you guys are not allowed as a city to charge an impact fee for schools. I think you're aware of that, and Emily can
Correct. That is
elaborate on
not
that further.
allowed
It's
by
not
Idaho
allowed
code.
by law, so it's not a city thing, that's a state law. The schools are funded through generation of property taxes. There's a certain percentage of property taxes that go to pay for the schools. The school district was provided a full copy of our application. James can talk about that. I don't believe they commented on this particular
I
application.
also submitted a request for agency comment to the school district.
So they've
which
been
I
notified
told you
twice,
so.
which I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's not uncommon that the school district doesn't respond to stuff. Now, I know there was a big thing in your staff report from the school district on their future long-range planning, which I think you're gonna get into in the next
Right.
hearing with your comprehensive plan amendments and stuff. The school district's involved at that level, but again, so we can't, as developers, pay impact fees to the school like we do with park impact fees and street and traffic impact fees and other things. It's just not allowed by state law. It's funded by property taxes and demographics and you know, which kind of people are moving to the area and how many kids they have. I know Cliff can talk a little bit more about that. He's more versed on people that are moving to the area than I am. But again, that's not, we've reached out to the school twice. The city did, we did, and they provided no comment. So that can address that. As far as, you know, the building code issues, that's a building code thing. I'm not involved in that aspect of it. I unfortunately can't answer that. Sounds like staff looked into it and didn't find anything. I don't know the particular, yeah, I
We
don't.
can't speak to any of that, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know anything to talk about that issue, so I apologize for that. But I don't know if Cliff had anything he wanted to add, or if you had any further questions for me.
Anyone on commission? Any questions, anybody?
Or comments? We'll get to that.
Yes. All right. Okay, commission will deliberate on the application. You may make your comment.
Well, one thing is that there's we have property rights, and so when people have the property, they have the zoning, and as long as they're meeting the comprehensive plan and they're meeting our codes, they're legally, they have the right to do certain things on that property. So when other citizens don't like what they're doing, they can maybe purchase that property so that they can do what they want on that property. But the reality is that they do have a legal right to do certain things on that property. And so, you know, everybody has their own property rights. Nobody wants to encroach on one another. From what I see here, the fire department, all of them were like, it's fine. We're doing fine. I have my husband did construction, so he worked for Pulte Homes as a construction manager, and now he does water distribution, so he kind of has the combination of both. And every time I see something in here, it always says that from the water report is that it's fine. I haven't seen anything that's saying that there's nothing that because they all give their reports, and I haven't seen a report yet that is saying that this housing development is gonna cause a problem. And so,
Can James interject a quick comment on that?
When the city reports that capacity is available, that's all we're guaranteeing. Right now, today, when we were asked, the capacity for this is there. We do not guarantee that in 20 years there'll be water. We're saying right now it is available for the development.
yeah,
So,
and that's just some thoughts that I have regarding this.
Nick, any thoughts?
I think, as I heard the comments, our responsibility and role here is to review everything that's set forth in front of us and make sure it meets all the requirements. We only can make a recommendation to the city council to approve it or deny it based on criteria that developers have to meet. And in their presentation, they did, they memo. And so it's not our job to be judge or jury. It's only to make sure that they met what they said they were gonna meet, and it was agreed upon. And so, I think a lot of people have a false pretense into what our power is or what we can or cannot do. We do not do anything, but we make a suggestion. And from what I see, it's met everything I've seen required.
I do have one more thing to say, is that, from being on the planning and zoning for a year now, the growth has come up a lot. And even I go to meeting after meeting in the community and hear what community members are saying. So I completely hear you, but someone once said, what would happen if you said yes to everything, or what would happen if you said no to everything and everybody was doing it? So you can't always say yes to everything or no to everything. And one of the things about, I was just doing economics with my daughter, and it came up, the supply and demand. If you have if you don't build anything and you have very low supply, you're gonna continue to have very high housing prices. So you do actually have to build to decrease values as well. So that's why I feel like we wouldn't wanna always just say no to everything, even though I know people wanna keep things exactly the way, they don't want it to grow. They like all the land, but at the same time, you can't always just say yes or no.
I'd like to piggyback on that comment. The expansion of government powers in order to stop that growth is really not what we want to become. We don't want to expand the powers of the city government in order to stop all growth. Because ultimately, our culture in North Idaho is that if it's your property, and you should be able to do what you want with it. That said, with all of the concerns that were voiced, there are some clarifications coming up before City Council to Rathdrum City Code that would be great to have that comment, those comments voiced to City Council as that approaches, with better clarifications on zoning, so that there's no surprises about higher density housing also immediately meaning a great big apartment complex. So that would be a great place to voice some of those concerns, as those changes are going to make their way up to City Council. I don't know when, sometime soon.
They were supposed to have been workshopped at last week's meeting. They will be there
Next week.
So that's something great to bring to City Council, but as far as, and Nick has put it very well, as far as the laws that are currently in place, this has met all of the requirements. I do give a little pushback on it. You don't have to, but generosity is always appreciated in the community. Anything you want to add?
No, I agree with what Nick said. He said it was very well. So I totally agree with him.
I have another comment. why I did ask if there were any complaints. Because I think when you hear the complaints, sometimes there's things that the developer can also pay attention to. Well, what are the concerns of the people around, to maybe work something out along the way to where it's something that is a win-win for both people to.
Cause for capitalism, it's in their best interest to do so.
Yeah.
I have one quick question. Can you explain, like for the schools, there's a portion of the property taxes that help fund the schools, but the other way is levies. And how do the police department and the fire department and EMS get funded?
EMS and the fire department are funded partially through property tax, through the county, and they are also able to charge impact fees. We saw those at public hearing a month ago.
Yep, so we now collect impact fees for them, as you guys know, and you guys probably are aware that we now collect impact fees for EMS and fire districts, so New Growth is paying for the increase in infrastructure for those two entities. So that is a good thing. Hopefully that addresses some of your concerns, but as Drew said, schools aren't allowed to collect impact fees yet. There is potential legislation, but we have to wait for it to go through down in Boise before we can do impact fees for schools. So all they're left with is levies, which they put out to the taxpayers, and the taxpayers have to vote on that. And so far they haven't been able to pass one. So the taxpayers have chosen the level of capacity in the schools as of today.
Capacity and level of service, it's chosen. They could have chosen to spend more money on levies and they've chosen not to.
Yeah, but it is not the requirement of the developer based on state law.
Correct. Right.
So this is just a hearing, we're not recommending anything.
You are, yep, there's an action item. Please feel
Sweet.
free to make a motion with your recommendation for council.
Alright, make a motion.
Make a motion to recommend the city council approve this.
I'll second.
All in favor? Do you want to roll call it?
Sure. Nina Beasley,
I
Nick Burns, Lacey Schwab,
Yes.
John May.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Awesome. Alright. City of Rathdrum Comprehensive Plan Amendments. If you guys don't have to stick around for this part, you're welcome
This is the
to
fun part.
run away.
You can take my seat.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Alright, we will now open the hearing for, oh wait, this isn't a hearing. Is this a hearing?
Yes.
It's a hearing. City of Rathdrum Comprehensive Plan Amendments. Why didn't you do this, guys? Alright. We'll go in the same order with the same rules. Staff?
So before you tonight are 4 different documents that were received by the city to add to our comprehensive plan. The first one is from the school district. The council gave staff a direction to reach out to the school district to see if they had anything they wanted to add to the comp plan. They sent us their long-range facility planning guide from 2019. They are working on a new one now, but this is one they currently have. And they sent us a little short narrative, and they said, here, you can add this to your comp plan to fulfill the school facilities requirement in 676509. So, because there is a requirement to include information about school facilities if we have that. So that was the first one. The second and third documents are the capital improvement plans for the EMS and fire district. It was part of the discussion, and it might even be a requirement with an ordinance. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to check, but it's part of the discussion when we adopted those impact fees that we would adopt their CIPs into our comp plan. So as we plan for the future, we can take their plans for infrastructure into account as well as a planning tool. So we also have our CIP in there, so we would adopt their CIPs as exhibits within the comp plan. So it doesn't necessarily affect the goals, it just kind of supports whatever goals would apply to those CIPs. So that was kind of part of the discussion when we adopted those impact fees, that they would be adopted into our comp plan. And then the fourth document, we finally got our transportation plan and CIP for Rathdrum. Kevin, our engineer, did submit a memo that I think was in the packet hidden in there that kind of explained that. And so that is something that we do every 5 years or something like that, so that we can update our own transportation plan. In our current comp plan, there was a footnote in 2 areas that I did send you that said that as soon as that was passed, we would adopt it into the comp plan. So we're kind of already putting it on ourselves to adopt that into our comp plan since it's now done. And then it also fulfills some of the requirements of 67, 6509 as well. So when I did my analysis, I believed legally that these 4 documents are supported by the Idaho Code. We don't have any local code when it comes to adopt or amending the comp plan, just the Idaho Code. So it's kind of what you guys feel is necessary for the planning of the city. We don't have the power to change the documents themselves, it's just whether you want to add them as exhibits or not.
Alright, is this a wholesale, all 4 of them or none of them?
No, you can pick which ones you want to add. I would say that all of them are, for the most part, legally obligated to be added, so I would highly question if you choose to not add one of them. And I would hope you have a dang good legal reason to not do that.
Wait, let me rephrase. City attorney, what legal basis could we have for, what are our legal options here?
Your legal options are to recommend adding these documents to the comp plan as exhibits.
And again, they are exhibits. They are not a modification of the goals and policies of the comp plan. They are exhibits to support them.
Yeah, so our goals and policies are exactly the same. It's just as they may apply to these exhibits support that with further planning tools that we can use in our code as our code dictates that we use the comp plan to help plan for land use.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. When you're done, I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay. So this is an amendment to our comp plan that we review every 5 years. How long will these be in? How long will it before they're refreshed? Okay, so let me be more clear. The school is constantly churning these out, so why are we putting it in the comp plan?
This is what we have for the comp plan now. After they do a new long-range facility report, we'll bring that to you and see if you want to switch them out. Yep.
Okay.
The comp plan is kind of a living planning document, so as we get new information in, we want to update our plans that we're planning with the newest information for the future. This is just what we have now, is from the 2019.
The comp plan is also required by statute to be updated every 5 years.
And it can be updated sooner, just like we're doing
Right,
now.
but we have to
we
do
have
it
to
at
do it
least
every
every
5
5
years.
And we just adopted this
2021, September.
last year,
Mm-hmm.
the current comp plan.
So if we have zero say over anything school related because it's state, how come it has to be?
So we, as far as the comp plan, the Idaho Code does require that we take school facilities into account when we're planning as a guide. So it's not necessarily a requirement that we include schools as a legal criteria for these land use decisions. It's an option, but it's not a requirement. It is a requirement that we include schools in our planning guide for the future.
Question,
So we have to take them into account. We just don't have. They don't get veto power, basically.
does that only apply to public schools?
All it says is school facilities and transportation.
But
Oh, it says public school. An analysis of public school capacity and transportation considerations associated with future development.
Yeah.
That's what it says. If it says public school capacity, that's what you take into account.
It's gonna start changing the project.
So I'm sorry. I need some more clarification. So it feels like, let's put this in the comp plan, but we can't actually use that in making land use decisions. But then we have people coming up in planning meetings into city council going, do something about our schools, but we can't.
So there are some land use decisions that do, in the legal criteria, have a criteria that says, is this in general accordance with the comp plan? Not all of the land use decisions have that, but some of them do. So like annexations, for example, they allow a lot more discretion on what we want in and out, and we have a criteria that says, is this in general accordance with the comp plan? That's a legal criteria. So you go into that legal criteria, you can delve in. If you find that it doesn't match the school plan and our goals and policies for the school, that's a legitimate legal excuse to deny an annexation, is because it's not meeting that legal criteria of meeting the comp plan.
Oh.
kind of. It says the general goals and policies, which means that one strike doesn't necessarily mean you're out, right? There's 20 goals and policies we have to review, and one of them is off. That's not generally not in accordance.
Well, that's a
right?
use, I guess. That's so much, it's something, because I hate to put it in when we just feel like we're the shield for anger toward
I think it's
schools.
important to show that we're trying to include schools in our planning, which we are, and that's why we want to include this long-range facilities, because our comp plan is our planning tool. It is involved with large land use decisions like annexations, like I don't know if all the rezones, some of the rezones need it, and other decisions need it, PUDs I believe need it. So a lot of our land use decisions require that we, in our legal criteria, that we do look at the comp plan as our planning guide and our planning tool. I think it's important, and the law says we have to take schools into account.
Thank you.
That hopefully
That
helps.
helps so much. Anybody else have questions?
As I was going through all the information, and you said the transportation plan, is there anything in that transportation plan that is trying to connect Spokane?
I don't know. I didn't read it.
No, that,
Because there's a lot of.
there may be,
concerns.
but that wouldn't be our transportation plan.
That would be county.
ITV's or
ITV.
Kootenai County. Our transportation plan is looking at, the development of arterials and stuff
And
within the city.
roundabouts
that-
and lights.
interconnectivity and planning for future development. How do we get out there if that property was to be annexed, right? Where do we need roundabouts? We need a new light at Meyer and
Yeah,
41.
so there's nothing in there in regards to that.
I don't
It's
believe so.
outside of city limits.
So are you guys required to put those lights in there?
Required? No, we have to go beg permission to do anything on a highway right away, and it's theirs. They don't let us do anything. It's to be
State
part
highway.
of their plan.
We just have to start with it in our plan, and then we go and see if it's in their plan, and then we can move from there. But our CIP and the transportation plan, that will lead to our impact fees that we collect, which you guys will hopefully see next month, is our updated impact fees that will follow with our transportation plan and CIP that you're seeing now. We just have to adopt this first, then we'll go into impact fees next month for Rathdrum.
So you're only required all the minor arterials and any connection point that connects into the major arterials, as long as they approve it.
Right, well, that's something that Kevin, the city engineer, looks at when the plat first comes in for review. It's like, okay, we have no access to this parcel up here. Well, I look at Lake Landings, it's got a little stub that goes north to city limits, it just ends there, right there,
Yeah.
because we have to look at developing, future development. If, right, those connectivity from Thayer Farms, they go north into that parcel that's outside of the city limits. For fire to get there, they would have to go all the way to Lancaster, all the way down Lancaster and back up, right, Greens Ferry to get into that subdivision if it was developed later without interconnectivity. Where right now they come down Rio Grande and shoot all the way across into it, right? So we have to have multiple connectivity, EMS, fire, transportation, congestion, etc.
And we have what's called kind of a to and through policy with roads, water, and sewer. So like if someone's building a road or water and sewer across their property to give it to themselves, they have to build it and stub it to the next property. So when we annex that, it's all right there, ready to go onto their property.
Right.
So we put that on the developer to pay and to do that.
Okay. What about, which hasn't been brought up, what about like what's the plows under?
The what?
The plows, city plows
City
that
plows.
clear the roads.
Yeah, they're under the Public Works Department.
Are they?
Mhm.
How do they get funded? Because like with all these developments and everything else, I'd never even thought about that till now. It's like, how are they getting funded? Because
I think, are they in the parks?
No,
Or they're Public Works?
Public Works, so they're under.
They're part of our budget, and I think since they last longer than 10, I don't know if they last longer than 10 years, we might be able to use impact fees for them, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I think they might be included potentially in our impact, if they last longer than 10 years, we can use impact fees for them. If not, we can use impact fees for other large projects and then spend money we would have used on that for maintenance of our vehicles. It kind of depends on the vehicle and if it lasts long enough to be
Right,
considered
right.
for an impact fee.
Yeah, that comes from property taxes through the regular city budget.
okay, because I was just thinking.
There's no levy or bonds or
Yeah,
things that are
with all
passed by
these
the
new
people.
houses and roads,
Mhm.
there's a lot more work for them
Right.
with how hard it is to get
And
them.
each one of those building permits is paying impact fees to the city, so.
So I have a sort of a public clarifying question. So we are just voting as to whether or not we recommend to city council these be added or switch old information as exhibits. So should anyone watching or as a member of this audience here have issue, where would they take those for these particular things, like say the transportation plan?
That would be a city engineer question.
Yes.
Great.
And EMS and fire district created their CIPs, that would be questions for them. The city's long-range facility planning, that would be a question for them.
Awesome.
These are just documents that we would add into our comp plan for future planning purposes.
Okay.
So essentially, these documents are just in addition to what we already have on the comp. So like when you get through the comp plan, and then it has all those additional documents that are, like you said,
Supporting.
exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
This is just gonna be added in there.
Extra exhibits, yep.
So it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not changing the body of the comp plan, we're not changing our policies and goals, we're just adding more supporting documents to support those goals and policies.
Any other? All right, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like 3 minutes in favor of adding these exhibits? Any neutral adding the exhibits? Any opposed adding the exhibits? Any online? All right, we'll close public hearing and deliberate. I would also entertain a motion if we're just ready to go.
I move to add these supporting documents to our comprehensive.
To recommend
To
adding?
recommend?
Yep.
Yeah, I move to recommend. Thank you.
No problem, you got it.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Do you want a roll call or?
Yes, I will roll call it. Nina Beasley,
Aye.
Nick Burns,
Yes.
Lacey Schwab,
Yep.
and John Lynn.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Awesome. All right. New business. Consideration of Thayer Farms. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Thayer Farms North final plat. Thayer Farms. Thayer
That's
Farms.
on here.
Oh my goodness.
So this item before you is the final plat of Thayer Farms. It's already been, or final, Thayer Farms North final plat. This was seen in public hearing before you. It was seen again in public hearing before the city council. It was approved. There are no major modifications to this, and everything is straightforward.
Aren't we going to try to remove this from our plate since we have no say, it's already been done?
Because you had the public hearing on it and approved the preliminary, the final has to come back to you. So that's why it's here as an action item, not as a public hearing again. They've met all the requirements that they needed to do. All of the development agreements, the conditions of their plat, the infrastructure is ready to be accepted, or they will post warranty bond for it so that they can.
I make a motion to
Well, I
approve the final plat.
actually have a question. If you don't mind
Go for it.
before. So as I was reading the public comments, there was a resident and they had some suggestions of things that they can potentially do. Is that anything that,
No, unless those suggestions were taken up by city council at their public hearing and made as conditions of the plat, we cannot go back and add those now.
so if this goes to the city council, can they?
Not this
Or
time.
it's just a done
Not-
deal?
It's done, as long as they have met the requirements of the plat and of the prelim plat to get to this stage, it's a done deal.
But so essentially when they were doing the initial plat, that was the time to consider all of the
Yes.
community comments and whether there would be some kind of negotiation that, hey, like, let's make sure that that's in there.
Right.
So that was
At
the
that time, the city council could have made conditions to the preliminary plat, which would have had to been met to get to this stage, final plat, but we can't go backwards and add.
So this
conditions.
is
That's
just
legal
conditions to what we already.
Legal and reasonable
Council has
conditions,
power.
not just any
Oh, I know.
condition.
Yeah.
Legal
But it
and
has to be
reasonable
approved.
conditions.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why this one was early. This
Yeah.
west one was early.
Yeah.
The parks idea is great. And
Yeah.
they say it's green space, it's weeds with trash in it. So, I mean, I don't know why they call it green space, but it's not green. It's weeds with
And
trash.
then they didn't put grass.
No, they are not.
Again, if the city was to, well.
Yes.
All right,
Not
so
part
that's
of
why
this,
we're
I-
talking
Let's
about
do the
this.
final plat first.
Yes.
Your city council
Yeah.
can demand green grass.
All right, I make a motion
Yeah.
to recommend to city council for the approval of the final plat for Thayer Farms North.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Visitors have an opportunity at this part to take, to make comments known. Let's see, you get 4 minutes this time. No formal action may be taken, though the commission may place the topic on a subsequent agenda for future discussion and consideration. Comments regarding performance by city employees are inappropriate this time and should be directed to the mayor. Repeated comments of the same or similar topic will be considered out of order and not allowed. Would either of you like to make any public comments?
Do we have to go up to the podium?
You sure do.
Well. No.
You don't have to. We're all looking at you. You don't
Well, I
have
just-
to if you don't want to.
And I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I wanted to say, I think your idea of green space inside these developments is a great idea. And I don't know if that needs to be done in the comprehensive land use plan. I don't know where the starting point is for any of this. That's a great idea, and I think that the community would love that.
That would be the changes before city council.
Okay, okay.
No, we already passed that, one of those.
Well, I'm just
Buffer,
saying
so-
in future ones.
But
We
there
did-
is one where it's for so many homes, right? They have to do
That's what I thought.
what do they call it? Like either a bike rack or a fountain or a pool or
No,
a park,
those are amenities
right?
and those are only in multifamily developments,
That's only
not
in
subdivisions.
It's not in
Apartments.
single family. Okay, so it's
Right.
only in like what
Apartment
Mr. Mayor was talking about, the
complexes.
apartments.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
But we did just pass a requirement in the new Title 12, requiring extra buffers on the edges of subdivisions. So there will be additional buffers in any new subdivision that gets application turned in, required additional green space that is required to be maintained. So it has to be green.
So that's for anything going forward?
Yes.
Right.
This was turned in before that just got passed in August. This was turned in July or
We
June.
did consider a park requirement was turned on,
Oh yeah, and James was just saying, we did consider a park requirement, cause that was something that the commission was interested in. But we have to be really careful about that because it can be considered what's called a takings, which means the city is basically forcibly taking private property for public use without just compensation. We can't do that. So we have to be careful when it comes to actually having parcels of land that we're requiring to be a park, because that can be considered a taking and we can be sued for that.
But there are major developments in Southern California that have that. You guys should look up this community called the Great Parks neighborhood in Irvine, California. That developer, it's multiple developers, it is giant, and the entire, it used to be an old military base, and they made it a giant park-like neighborhood. And there's schools, libraries, they just opened up a water park inside the neighborhood. You don't ever have to leave. It is gorgeous, and they required their developers to do that because they're like, oh, you want to put in 12,000 homes? You will make a connecting walking path, you will make parks, you will make schools, you will make community areas, and it is, I would love if the city of Rathdrum would do something like that, because we're gonna have growth, right? But you want to bring that quality of life. Why is everyone moving here to live 10 feet from their neighbor? It's disgusting. We don't require the parks, and it would be great if we would do something like that and do those takings you say you can get sued for. If they can't sue you in California for it, honey, they're not suing you in Idaho for it either.
Oh, they will.
They will sue in California, that's sue happy, so I think
Well, I
that.
don't know that we want to expand the powers of government to be able to do those sorts of
Well,
things.
Some of it could be like a special district overlay that
Yeah,
you're talking
and
about
it
that's
could be.
specific to
So
that
how
area,
do we
which
do
is
that?
something that we can do in certain areas. We can do specific, like downtown has a special district overlay that allows for different requirements rather than what we have in our city code. So
Just
we can
adding to
do
the
those in
city code.
specific areas, but we can't necessarily apply that across the board. But
Yeah. I
Could
wish we
we?
could figure out a way to come
I
to a,
agree.
you know.
Could we put on a subsequent agenda to talk about a Rathdrum City something to propose to city council about kind of addressing, some kind of green space requirement that has a more dedicated use than a buffer? Is that something that we could put on the agenda to talk about and to kind of iron out if that's even possible?
Maybe. I know that, you know, we have the Parks Commission that deals with acquiring new property.
Okay, so
and
Parks Commission,
Right, that would be the place to address, do we want this thing?
well, where we kind of overlay, is it possible to do like a joint something? Where, like, that we could help encourage what their, or even to hear what their vision is, so that we're better understanding that as planning? Be my yes man, James, say
I'm not
yes.
sure. I think that's a fantastic idea when you crack the comp plan again,
Okay,
right? Which I don't want to do right this instant because we just adopted it last year. Although we.
took us like 2 years to get.
Right, there's an awful
Thanks,
lot to that. But I think maybe that conversation should happen between you guys and Parks, because I don't think you guys have ever been introduced to what the Parks plan even is.
No, because it was so helpful when we did that with traffic. Like, that was unbelievably helpful.
And I can do some research myself on the legal requirements there, and if I come up with something, I can put a report on a subsequent agenda and try to update you guys on that. Would that be?
Lacey Schwab, you were out of time.
So, from what I'm understanding, either somebody has to donate and want to put in a park, like a developer or something that it's of their own free will that they want to do a park, or the city of Rathdrum has to pay for land to build a park.
Yes.
Yes.
So that is something that would need to be addressed with your parks and rec.
Yes. Because they
Right,
budget for
because
those.
the Parks Master Plan,
So
like I
if we want more
said,
parks,
has these
we need to ask them.
overlaying regions. We need a city park here, we've got a city park in the Northwest City Park, then we've got Majestic Park, which are big parks, so they overlay a big area. And then there's supposed to be smaller parks that overlay each other inside there. So there is a plan for the acquisition or the general location of parks of different scales.
But the city would have to pay for that.
Right.
And if there's a subdivision where we think we need a park because of the park plan, that's a discussion we have before prelim plat even comes to you guys.
It was a condition, a 5-acre park, a condition of annexation for Brookshire South, right? That it's
That
there.
they put a park.
That they
Right.
put a park, because
A
that's a
big
planned
park
park
down
there.
And where,
With only limited access, because the railroad cuts it off. And there's no entity bigger than the railroad to tell them that they have to put some access.
We can access on
railroad
the
is
bottom
involved.
road entrance, right?
Right.
Or trespass.
That is, like, wouldn't it, I would love to have a workshop with Parks and Rec, or just to understand that, so, because what I don't wanna do is have people come here and we go, oh, pawn it off on somebody else. It would be nice to, yes, this is where you need to be directed to,
Maybe we just need to
but
have
we're
Eric
also.
come in.
But that's what I'm thinking,
Exactly.
maybe it would be possible to get Eric Singer, the director of Parks and Rec, to come in and give you a presentation on the parks plan.
That would be so great.
Because I'm not sure if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, could we do that on a future agenda?
Is everyone in agreement that they want
In
that?
a workshop environment, yes.
Right.
Well, I don't know
think
how
we
much input you guys can have on the
Well,
parks
it's just more
plan,
information.
but
that's all.
he can give you a report. You wouldn't have like an action item, it would just be a
Oh, that
parks
would be
plan
great.
report to you.
I
Because we
think
did
so.
that with traffic. I don't know if you were here for traffic,
I
but it was
wasn't.
amazing. That helped so much.
well, one thing too, they do have parks and rec meetings that you can go to.
Right.
And learn
But I
about.
come there. I come
Yeah,
here.
okay.
Well, and then the other question I have is, in the budget, that's if the city was paying for a park, that comes from property taxes?
Comes from impact fees.
Impact fees,
Mhm.
so they get a portion of
Portion of the
impact
budget
fees
is,
to pay for a park.
right, that's
Yep.
set aside for the acquisition of property.
Yep.
And in our decision, trying to remember, we couldn't raise those impact fees even more because I asked if we could.
No, impact fees have a specific calculation that's mandated by the Supreme Court of Idaho,
Yeah.
and that's all we can do. And that's laid out in the CIP and our transportation plan, and it'll come before you guys next month as a part of our impact fee stuff.
Sweet.
So the state has to change their
Calculation.
calculations and way of thinking in certain ways to allow more freedom for the cities to do what needs to be done, because not all cities are equal.
Right.
And their ignorance in thinking that way is pretty bad. Yes, I mean, you might as well be back chiseling on stone tablets, honestly.
I think you should go down and tell him that, Nick.
Okay, no problem.
Road trip.
Committee meetings.
All right, if there is nothing else, let's adjourn.
Let's adjourn it.
Yay.
Done.
You guys learn more?
You and I could.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
It's also
Emily,
Yeah. Thank you,
I
John.
felt
Mr.
weird.
William.
I felt weird when I left. I go,
Cause I
I
love
told
them
my
all
wife,
the
I said, I
time.
think I offended
Your
her.
friends are cracking
And she
me
goes,
up.
don't ever use that word in public.
What is that?
And I said,